Hi, everybody. I'm Jean Maziarz, the library director. I'm so thrilled that so many of you came to hear about the library. I know it's a special place in our town. You all care about it deeply, and we're really going to value your opinion on what we're proposing and what needs to be done here at the building. As I said, I'm the library director. I've worked here at the library for almost 23 years now. I've been the director for about 8. And I have to tell you, I know this building as well as I know my own house. Maybe better. And my husband does too. He helps me with, oh, there he is. Lots of handyman projects around here. And we work with DPW. Sean is here from DPW. Thanks for coming, Sean. The building has a lot of needs that I think aren't really always noticeable to all of us that just come in and out every day. So I can talk about the library for hours, honestly, and the building. So at some point, please cut me off if I'm going too long. So Storrs Library is in the very first phase of a renovation. It's the design and feasibility study phase. This phase, we've hired Johnson Roberts Associates, a premier New England-based architectural firm specializing in libraries and municipal buildings. We've contracted them for this work. This phase of the project is being paid for it's funded partially from the Board of Trustees. They've contributed $100,000 to this study, and the other half of it, $100,000, is being supplied by CPA funds from the town of Long Meadow. So we're really appreciative of that, and with us today, we have from Johnson Roberts Associates, Phil O'Brien and Christina Marsh, who've been working on this project. A little bit of building background I'll give you. The original building, the front part of the building, was built in 1932. The addition, which included the lobby, the children's room, this meeting room, and the second floor above those spaces, was added on in 1992. Since then, the town and CPA funds have supported new windows throughout the building and a new roof. The original building has a slate roof, and that was really in pretty decent shape, but some repairs were made to it when the new asphalt roof was put on the 1992 portion of the building. So that's pretty much all that's been done since 1992. Really important things, but the interior needs some attention. The only updates that have been done in the 1992 portion of the building have been in the children's department. And that was all done by staff. We started it just before the pandemic shutdown and continued while the library was shut down. We painted, we emptied the bookshelves, rearranged the stacks to make beautiful little study spaces everywhere, got new carpeting, put all the books back on the shelves. That was all done by staff here at the library. It was a huge job. No additional funding was sought for that. The interior lobby, bathrooms, and second floor are in dire need of renovation. Nothing's been done to those areas since 1992, and this is a well-loved building. The finishes are failing, along with many other physical plant items. So on to the main goals of this project. Addressing ADA compliance and overall accessibility. The main entrance that you technically is ADA compliant because it's grandfathered. It would not pass current regulations. There's too many sharp corners coming into pillars before you enter our entrance, and the doors, because we don't have a large enough vestibule, we can't have push button ADA compliant doors. From my office, I see the entrance, and I actually see the difficulty people have coming into our building when somebody's in a wheelchair, when somebody has a walker, any just slow ability. One woman had knee surgery, and she was just slow walking through the door, and the door came back and hit her and knocked her over. So our entrance really needs some required attention. The bathroom finishes are in bad order, and the old original front entrance also is not in very good condition. The other thing that we are trying to address with this study is infrastructure. There's a lot of physical plant problems. Our HVAC system is at end of life. In the 2012 town study about our building study, in 2012, they addressed the fact that our HVAC was near end of life, and here we are. Our alarm and fire systems are out of code. Our elevator, we just had a repair the other day. I brought the man to the elevator, and he said, "Oh, they don't make these anymore. We can't really repair this. I'll do what I can." And then also, we have water infiltration at times in the basement. If any of you have noticed, the front of our building has really ugly PVC tubing coming down and diverting the water away from the foundation, kind of making that space unusable, and we'd love to use that beautiful terrace in our front lawn for more programming and book club meetings, etc. So back to my notes. So also the second floor, as I said, nothing's been done up there. We have a need for meeting spaces, and we really don't have them except for this room. We've been using our genealogy room, but that is technically supposed to be a climate-controlled facility, and with the coming and going of using it for small study spaces or private meetings, it's not very well regulated. So while we're addressing all these requirements, these things about our building that just aren't functioning any longer, it's also an opportunity for us to make some improvements and bring us into the 21st century. As I said, the second floor, nothing's been done there since 1992. We'd love to add some meeting and study rooms. We'd love to add a bathroom. People up there working on the computers or meeting with others, they have to come downstairs to go to the bathroom. There should be one bathroom on a floor of that size. Also, our staff work downstairs in the basement right now. You'll see Christina has prepared slides on that. You'll see that it's really inefficient for us going up and down the stairs all day to co-work as we need to do. So part of this plan is to bring the staff up to where our work is and make efficient workspaces. So you're here today because you all care about the library and our community, and we know those two things go hand in hand, that we have a strong community and the library is a strong part of that. So please, when you've seen this presentation, please offer your input, ask questions, and help us support this project as we try to move forward with it. So Johnson Roberts is here today to present us with schematic design solutions to our problems. These aren't detailed, final detailed architectural plans. So, outdoor spigots, for example, won't appear on them. Those details will absolutely be considered when we get to final plans, but these are schematic design solutions that we're seeing today. These design suggestions are based on their deep analysis of our building and grounds that have included consultation with all sorts of engineering specialists. So they've compiled all of the specialists' reports and put them into what we'll be seeing today and what will be their final feasibility study to us when this is done. So I'm going to hand it over to Phil O'Brien from Johnson Roberts.
right. Can you all hear me? This is actually... Yeah? You can hear me okay? I don't know if it's just my voice or if this is just for cable television. It's just for cable. Okay, so this isn't actually increasing my voice, so I'm just going to have to belt it out there. If I begin to taper off, let me know. Luckily, you don't have to listen to me for too long. I'm going to turn it over to Christina, and she's going to do the majority of the presentation for us. I just wanted to give you a little introduction. My name, again, is Philip O'Brien. I'm a principal at Johnson Roberts. Christina Marsh is an associate at our office, and we're kind of the tip of the spear that's leading the design team. There's a bunch of other people that are kind of behind us doing all the kind of busy work, and we're going to go over our engineers a little bit as well, but I just wanted to let you know who we are. Johnson Roberts we're in our 30th year this year, so it's our anniversary. I have been with Johnson Roberts since about 4 months after it started, so I'm in my 29th year. I joined up with Stuart Roberts. He and I worked together for about 10 years in another firm, so I've been doing this type of work now for about 40 years. Public libraries is really one of those things that we do. We do lots and lots of public libraries. If you had the time, I could bore you with the ones that are just kind of close by to you. But we've done a couple in Springfield, and we've done the one in East Longmeadow. We've done a bunch of them up in the Connecticut River Valley. There's a bunch of our buildings around that you could go see. I feel like we know public library design pretty well, but you all know your library, you know your town, and that's really what we need to know. So we're here to make a presentation to you on our feasibility study. This is really the first part of a larger design process that would have to happen that comes after this. We're looking at feasibility, and after this would come the full schematic design, and then there's another design phase called design development, and then after that would be construction documents where we draw up all the plans, and then you maybe bid the thing, and then they build it. So if it's a trip of 1,000 miles, we're about 48 miles in right now. So we wanted to reach out to you, and we haven't finished with the feasibility studies. We wanted to reach out to you now and make sure that you have an input on it. So for example, we're not going to know the details, and we won't know all the details like spigots and so forth. But if there's something that you think you need, that's why we're here. We want to hear from you about the things that you might need. So this is kind of what we need to do in order to just kind of finish this process. We're going to go over what we've done and what we've seen during our site visits, and we actually are doing some more site visiting today, because as soon as we get out of the car, we notice you still have some snow and ice up on the roof, and it's actually doing funny things, which is not uncommon in an old building, but it's one of those things that we're going to talk about. Engineers' reports and recommendations, as well as ours, are going to be in the final study, and we have some summaries of that information for you. And then once we find out what those issues are that we have to deal with, we want to talk to the library users, the DPW, make sure that we understand all the issues that they've identified. Because really what we're trying to do is, if you're going to go in and try to fix one issue, and it requires you opening up a wall or taking down part of a ceiling, you want to know, is there any other reason that I'm going to have to go back in there a year from now and take down a part of the ceiling or open up a wall? Let's get it all done at the same time so we can do it the most cost-effective and efficient manner and save you all a bunch of money so that you don't have to start doing things over and over again. That's really the idea of this feasibility study, is to find out what's the best way forward and then lay that all out for you and then let the town decide the way they want to move ahead. So we're soliciting input. That's where we are today. That's what we're doing. Then we'll put our draft report together. We'll put all our documents together, and we'll send it out for a cost estimate. So some of you may be sitting here today saying, how much is all this going to cost? We don't know that yet, because we want to make sure that we have all the information together, including the information we get back from you, get it all done, and then we'll send it out and get a cost estimate. Now, when we do the cost estimating, one of those things that we'll be looking at is how you get the work done. There's a bunch of different ways you can get it done. You can do it in one big chunk. Do it all at the same time, get one project, get it all done. That's probably the most cost-effective way to do it, rather than break it up into a series of projects that you do over time. You don't have to pay the escalation that's going to happen over time. Separate projects are going to have their own general conditions and so forth. All those costs will multiply. So if you do it all at once, that's great. But it's a big nut, and it also is going to be a lot of work that has to happen in the building at the same time. So folks will have to decide about what the best way is to do it. Once we get those final costs, we put the final report together, and then we're going to make additional presentations. So we'll be back doing some things like this. And when somebody says, how much is this going to cost? We'll say, well, it depends. How do you want to do it? And we'll have the answers for you. With that, I could almost turn this over now, but I will just go through and mention that the team that we mentioned, I'm not going to read all their names. They'll all show up in the report. These are engineers and consultants that we've worked with over and over again. They're the best of the best. And they've taken a look at all of the different systems, and then they've written reports. And those will all be in the final report. But we have summaries based on the information that we got from them. You know, I'm going to look at your boiler, and I'm going to see the same things you see when I look at a boiler like that. Boy, that don't look so good. But they're going to be able to tell us what they think the issues are with it, what the useful life is, and plan for something like that, and then give us a report that we can speak intelligently about that when we come to talk to you. And I think that's probably it for my part, unless there's a question that needs answering.
I have a microphone.
Oh, you have a microphone.
You can hold on to that.
I am also going to go around as people have questions, and I'm going to do the MC thing and bring the mic so that cable TV can pick up the sound.
Right. I forgot to mention that we are recording this for LCTV viewing. So we do need to ask questions into the microphone.
So I'll raise your hand and I'll trot around and do what I can.
So we have the presentation divided into two topics. One is looking at the new architectural program areas and renovations in different areas of the library. And then for the second part, we're closing with all the infrastructural replacements and repairs that need to happen to the building in order to keep it functioning, kind of what Jean alluded to in her introduction. So this is your library, and I've included the aerial just for orientation's sake. There'll be a series of plans, and they are always oriented the same way the aerial is. So north is always up. You can see the driveway where you come in, parking in the rear, and then the driveway where you drive out. And the plans are all oriented that way as well.
And there's your entrance right now.
So the first thing we're going to look at is providing a new entry addition to the south main entrance of the library. And this small addition provides many opportunities, both programming and access for the library. So you can see the picture of the existing condition, and I'd call your attention to the existing ramp and its kind of very zigzaggy nature and the difficulty of coming up in front of the doors, especially if they're open, if you are using the ramp. So this new addition addresses many different things, and the first one is the accessibility of improving the access. So you can see here the ramp is now straightened out. There are a series of places of landings within the ramp because of its length due to how high we have to get up. So there are places to pause. And then on the other side are the stairs, and everyone lands at the same place in front of the front doors. And we maintain the center vestibule. This addition also allows us to add a quiet study room at the first floor, which is a new program for the library to have small meeting spaces. It allows us to expand the tech services office that's up on the first floor. So as you know, there's a few staff members who are now on the first floor. And this been making the office bigger, we are able to move everyone out from the basement up to the first floor. And this is a great benefit in terms of functionality because you're now bringing the library staff where the patrons are, instead of having them downstairs in the basement. To take advantage of this, we've also now moved the circulation desk. As you know, the circulation desk is currently in front of the stairs that go up to the second floor and down to the basement. And this is just to aid in the workflow for the library staff. Now you have everyone there behind the circulation desk. If there are extra patrons, if something's needed at the desk, it's very easy for extra staff to come to the circulation desk and aid in that. By moving the desk, we can now open up the stairs to the second floor. I included these kind of existing condition drawings just to remind us all of what it's like now. Right now the stairs up to go upstairs are hidden behind doors and the wall. And so when you come into the library, if you are new to the library, you don't even know that you can get up to the second floor there. So this is a way of kind of opening up the many uses of the library to you as you enter to the library. As Jean alluded to in her introduction, the restrooms are in strong need of a renovation, and so we would tackle that as part of this project. We are making them be single-user restrooms for better equitable access. So this allows for scenarios where you're with a small child of an opposite gender, or you're with an elderly person who you would like to help of an opposite gender. All the different scenarios where it's just easier if there is a single user toilet room. When we're doing this, we are also shifting how they relate to the meeting room. Because right now, as you know, as we all just did, you are walking through this little hallway to get to the meeting room. The meeting room is quite hidden from the lobby, and you almost feel like you're going to the bathroom. I remember the first time I came here, and at the desk they're like, "You'll feel like you're going to the bathrooms, but you're not." So this will make that much more visible to the lobby as well, and we'll be able to have a double door as well, so it can be more welcoming. And then there will just be an overall update to this entire lobby area of rejuvenating, replacing the finishes, painting, a full facelift to the entire entry lobby. And this is then a view going back to the outside of that new entry. So currently, this portion here at the second floor is the existing, and there we go. So we're bringing this wall forward, just shy of the face of the children's room wall, and then we have the ramp and the stairs coming up to it, and a canopy, obviously, for when it's raining out. So then we'll turn to the front porch renovation. As Jean mentioned, there are a series of water issues in that area, so it's already a place where we would be doing work. And so also thinking about how this is an opportunity for the library to have an outdoor accessible space that could be used for programming. And so this is the proposed renovation of that front terrace. And we have some renderings of that as well. Whoops.
Yeah, while we're working on the technical issues, I wonder if we could have some questions. And I'd like to start with a question for the architect. I know that there's been an issue with water in the basement in the front of the building. And it looks to me as an amateur that there were downspouts that once went to underground drains. I don't know if they went to the storm sewer or to dry wells. But the water's been diverted onto the ground, which means it's probably going to get into the basement anyway. Is it still legal to drain roof drains into storm sewers, or do those in the future need to be diverted into dry wells further from the building?
Thanks for that question. I'm not going to pretend to know the exact answer to that. That's why we have our civil engineers, and they've made some recommendations of that. And the reason I don't know is because you have an existing building and it's an existing condition, the question is whether or not the code's going to make you do X, Y, and Z. My guess is if you're going to try to redirect the water, you're going to need to comply with the current code. And that would be that you need to manage it all on site. And that the only thing you're doing when you connect to the existing stormwater system in the street would be for overflow. And so it's probably something like dry wells or infiltration cells under the ground is probably what we're looking at. When we get to the point where we're doing a cost estimate, we'll get a report and a narrative that basically from the civil engineer that explains that scope of work so that the estimator will have something to base it on. Yeah.
I'm
Should we try
concerned
the mirroring again?
about the handicapped access. It sounds like you have no plans to change where the entrance is. And I'd like to have someone consider placing the entrance where the parking lot is. Because anybody who is handicapped or weak, that long upward ramp, I think, could be exhausting.
All right.
Thanks for that question. That is one of the things that we took a look at, was moving the entrance back down into the children's department. The trick is, once you move the entrance down there, you probably need to have the circulation desk go with it. And along with the circulation desk goes the technical services department, and maybe not Jean's office, that could be remote. But then you're displacing so much of children's that needs to go somewhere. So we actually looked at a variety of things. We actually looked at putting children's in the middle of the building. We actually looked at putting children's upstairs. We looked at a bunch of different options. All of them become complicated and expensive. And so sticking with this one seemed like the most cost-effective thing. Now, I agree that you still have a ramp that's pretty long. It's not as circuitous as it has before. We try to improve it that way. But we still have to get from point A to point B vertically, and the ramp is really the best way to do it. If we did it in the back, we'd end up with a ramp about the same amount of length in order to get us up there. We'd have to switch it back. So it doesn't save us much by moving the entrance to the rear.
It would. I know it would be expensive, but I would like somebody just to take a look at it again, because if handicapped people could go into the building on the same level as the parking lot, no, you'd have to switch everything around. But you may consider how this remodel that we can afford today might be changed in the future. And I don't know how practical it's going to be, but I think it should be a concern. That long ramp, I think, puts the library off limits for people.
Well, thank you.
I mean, one thing to consider, the children's room is higher than the parking level. So you still have the issue of getting up.
Well, you wouldn't really have to do a whole lot. You'd have to put the entrance where on the ground level, and then the elevator.
Sorry.
I don't know what would be at ground level on this building inside. I don't know if that's, there's a floor on the same level? There isn't,
No,
okay.
No, the children's level, if you're
It's
outside,
above.
you'll see that it's above. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's.
Yeah, so it would
there's no-
require, it would require that you would build something that has a lowered level to be at the same grade.
We do have space constraints here with our narrow driveway access, et cetera, around the buildings. We do, so we have difficult space considerations, right? And the first rendition of the entrance was actually coming in at ground level, so there was no ramp. It was beautiful. It was the first rendition of this, okay? But what it did entail was coming into a ground level lobby, so everyone would be walking in at ground level. There would be stairs that would be interior, which I loved the concept of that because snow and ice maintenance, DPW loved that concept. But what it did have to get people from that lower level to the lobby, because we are up higher in the building, is it had an interior lift. Like you see those in some buildings. The new adult center has a lift that brings people to the stage, from the main meeting room to the stage. Now, it's It's not a full
it's not a full
elevator.
elevator. It's, it usually has handrails on it, and you go in, you close the door. You still can see out, right? But it helps to do, so like stages is often a place where to make them accessible. You go into the lift at the audience level, and then you go up a few feet, and yeah.
But that idea was scratched because lifts are, from a maintenance perspective, problematic. They're not always very reliable, and ours would receive heavy usage. The adult center lift that brings people to the stage, that probably doesn't get used very often. This would get heavy usage. We have 90,000 people who come through our doors every year. It would see a lot of use, strollers, all sorts of abilities using that lift. It would receive daily use. And it was just determined that could be a maintenance nightmare, number one. Number two, we could have lines of people waiting to use the lift and get into the building. Like it would be an awkward access. So that's why that first idea was scratched, and we've come to this concept. But we have difficulties, right? We have space considerations. We have the height of the building that, some of these things we can't maybe solve, right? We can't make more space in our driveways, etc.
So may I suggest, I see that there are other questions, but may I suggest I'll run through the show in case I'm going to end up answering some of your questions, and then we'll revert back. And thank you very much for everyone's patience and flexibility with the slight different timing. So we'll go back to the front porch. And just wanted to walk you through kind of some of the elements for this. So to have an accessible access, as you know, right now there are a few stairs that are needed to go up to the front porch. We have pulled the stairs out from the porch and put in sloped walkways that bring you up to the porch level. These are sloped walkways, they're not a ramp, and so therefore, because they're gentle enough, we don't need to do all the handrails and things like that, so it still remains very open. We've maintained this central stair axis to maintain kind of the look and feel of the porch as it is today. And the thought is that this really becomes an outdoor space that's very easily accessible from the indoor as well. And so we'll do work at that historic front door to make it accessible as well. And so that means adjusting the levels so that there no longer is a step up into that threshold, putting ADA operators on those doors so that they both will open and allow access to it. And this would become a space that you can go in and out during the nice weather months and use that front terrace. As we were already discussing, there are a lot of existing drainage problems at this front, and the basement below does get water, and so part of this work will also be addressing all of those issues. And then there would become this new program space that Jean already has a lot of ideas of how it would get used. And it can be specifically for programs, but it's also thought of as being a passive space, that people can just go outside and read and things like that. So looking to have many different uses. Because it is a historic building, this of course will have to go to the Historic Commission and get approval. So we are early in, as we've mentioned, in the design process. I also would say the plants there, those were just, they're kind of a placeholder of an idea, all of these things, what type of pavement, all of those types of things. These are all just placeholders to kind of convey what this space could be, and that will all get looked at much more closely and designed as we move forward. But it creates a nice new amenity for the library to have this outdoor space. So then turning to the second floor, this is the space today, and as Jean mentioned in her introduction, it hasn't been renovated since it was built. And there is this need to have small meeting rooms, and so we have found a spot for some small meeting rooms and can accommodate those rooms without any loss to the existing collections or functionality that this library accommodates. So there are 4 small reading rooms of different sizes that get added on the south side of the 2nd floor. We are adding a restroom upstairs so that people no longer have to come downstairs to use the restroom. We're resizing the large opening between the floors to make better use of that space while still maintaining an opening for the historic window that exists there. And just looking to utilize the space better, hopefully help with some of the sound issues by not having it be quite so open to the lobby. And then we've rearranged the collections so that we still have the same linear feet of shelving. We will move Library of Things and AV down to the 1st floor. And then again, just like in the lobby, new finishes throughout, complete facelift to make the space feel new and vibrant again. And then in the basement, I've included some pictures because I don't know how many of us go down to the basement often so that we have a bit of a snapshot of what it looks like down there. Now that the staff offices are moving upstairs, we have gained a space to do something with. And this allows us to add a new maker space to the library. And so this is thought of as a place that it can be used as a meeting room, but it's also very much thought of as a place where you can have different types of crafts, making activities. There's a sink in the room. All sorts of things. The library will be able to offer things with this makerspace that it currently cannot. With that, we are providing new restrooms, both for the public ones by the makerspace, and for staff. And I included a picture of the current restrooms. There are 2 large restrooms down there now. We don't need that many fixtures in the basement, so providing new restrooms that are accessible and that the fixture count matches the need. We are also addressing the need for a staff lounge. Currently, the staff lounge is about half the size of what's shown in this renovated plan. And it, as you can see from the existing condition, it very much needs a facelift. This would allow it to have a kitchenette, more space, and becomes an amenity for the staff, that they have a place to take a break where they're in their off hour, or that they don't have to be public facing and have a nice space to retreat to. And then, as has been alluded to, there are a lot of things, a lot of infrastructural needs for the library. One of the big ones is that it needs a full replacement of the HVAC systems. The engineer who looked at it had the same assessment as Jean mentioned from the previous study, that it's at the end of life, it needs to be fully replaced. And this includes new equipment, new piping. General exhaust would be added to the building that currently doesn't have that. That's exhausting things like restrooms and janitor's closets. This helps control smells in the building. Installing a mechanical ventilation system into the building, which it currently doesn't have. This is to bring fresh air into the building without having to open a window, so that the proper amount of fresh air is provided. And then also in having a building management system, a BMS, and that is to control and monitor the system and tie it into the town systems as well. So that helps with diagnosing when there's a problem, but it also helps making sure that the equipment is running efficiently. There's several other building systems that need to be addressed. Electrical would need an upgrade in service. The report recommends replacing the lighting throughout the building and also assessing the emergency lighting and replacing receptacles throughout the building, providing receptacles where they're needed. There are a lot of extension cords and things like that want to actually have more dedicated receptacles. The fire alarm system is currently being designed to be replaced. That's a separate project from the feasibility project, but was also noted by our engineers that this is a need that the building has to have a new addressable fire alarm system. Fire protection, the building is currently not sprinklered. The recommendation is that the building be sprinklered. Given how much work needs to be done in the building, it would also be required by code. And then addressing the security system, expanding the existing cameras, CCTV monitoring of exterior spaces and the interior public spaces, having an expanded card reader system that's compatible with the town card reader system, and then having a dedicated telecommunications room in a conditioned room with backup power were also recommendations in the report. On the exterior, there's a lot of repairs that are needed. There's repointing of brick. There's places where the wood has rotted out and needs to be replaced. There are places where the base material is failing and needs to be replaced. In addition to the ramp and stairs at the front entrance that we would be renovating and replacing, at the rear entrances, there's repairs that are needed. There's water damage that has occurred. So basically, addressing the water issues, addressing the drainage, and then repairing where there has been the damage, and then repainting everything. So that's a large need. The water damage is very concerning because it can lead to bigger problems. And then outside, there's work also in the site. The needing to have an accessible route from all of the accessible parking spaces. Currently, really only one of them has a true accessible route. And then again, there was a recommendation to evaluate the lighting levels for safety, replacing parking lighting with dark sky compliant LED fixtures, and by improving the lighting, improving the safety of the parking lot without adding ambient light. And then there's just some repair work that needs to be happening, and also addressing some planting issues. And that, hopefully that wasn't too fast. I did have an eye on time. That is the overview. So now we can go back to having questions. And if there's something you'd like us to go back to, because I did rush now, just let us know and we can go back in the show.
Thank you. I just had a quick question regarding what happened in the past in 1992, because I wasn't living here. Was the library completely shut down, or was it renovated in stages? Because I anticipate this is a huge renovation, and I think it's great, but I can't imagine the library being completely closed for like 6 months even.
You want to take that one, Jean?
I was not here in 1992. Barbara Gelling was, and involved with the project.
I don't remember all the specifics, but the library at the time was just the front of the building, and there were not going to be really many changes to that part. Everything was an addition. So I think it was closed for a very minimal amount of time as they made the connecting doorways and things, but it stayed pretty much open. There was some changes in entries and exits at the time, but
Was there any controversy, or the funding was unanimous that people wanted it?
I don't know that it was unanimous. I don't think anyone ever is, but I think it was pretty well received.
Thank you.
I can say that this project is wholly endorsed by our town manager, select board, DPW. It's just, the question is funding, always, of course, right? We all understand that. We're all taxpayers, myself included. Right, and we don't have those numbers yet, as Phil said. We also are, depending upon how quickly this project could happen, we really actually might be at a good time point for it to happen, where we have some town buildings that are vacant. So there is currently, okay, I'm not going to say long-term, but currently there's an opportunity where we could use, say, just for example, everyone, the community house for a temporary library while construction was taking place here. Just putting that out there, that's the current situation.
With regards to what this woman in the front row was talking about, there is talk about putting a ramp going up from the parking lot, basically behind this part here, and coming in directly, and it would be protected. It would be having a canopy, so in the wintertime or the rain or whatever else, it would be well protected. If you're using the ramp that's in the front that's suggested, you have to walk all the way around, get caught in the rain and so forth. And there's a lot of old people in this town. The younger generation is disappearing. The old generation is basically keeping this population in Long Meadow stable. But we have to take care of those old people and make sure that they can get into the library safely.
Thank you.
To go along with your question, in 1992, my eldest of 4 children was 10 and my youngest was 2. And the library was, for the children's section, was in the basement. So it was a big excitement when we moved upstairs. I have a question about, is the library a place of refuge in a storm? Like, I think the adult center is designated that way. Is the library designated that way? And if it is, are there any considerations, like for meal preparations or things like that?
So we're not an actual refuge site in that respect. They have emergency shelter setups at the high school and the adult center, but that we are not part of that plan. We are a cooling center when it's hot outside, a warming center when it's too cold. So we fulfill those needs, but not lodging and meals.
We should find out if they want a generator. Back there. I'm coming.
There was a brief mention of the genealogy room sometime early in the presentation. Is there any thought about archival storage and including that in this development?
That room is climate controlled now, isn't it? And
We would just, our genealogy room would turn back into that, which that's the original purpose of the room, and we've come a little distance from that. So by building new study rooms, our genealogy room can get back to that purpose.
Thank you. Could you go back to the picture of the current ramp with the handrail?
The-
I just want to compare that to the proposed,
So,
the
there we
actual
go.
picture?
this one?
Okay. I find myself, getting a little bit older. I'm not quite as steady on my feet as I used to be. And I find that I use that handrail always. I'm looking at the proposed change to the porch, and I see that there's no indication of any kind of handrail system there at all. I would like to see that considered seriously.
Sure.
I would use it.
There'll definitely be handrails on both sides of that ramp,
Oh, there will.
and both sides of the stairs on the way up. Yep.
Yes, it was, sorry, I may have confused things. At the front, porch renovation, that's more just like a sloped sidewalk, not a ramp.
But in
And
the-
if there's a need for, we can always
Yeah.
add a rail. It's just, it doesn't, for ramps, there's like very specific rail heights, and you have to have, there's more, but we can definitely have a handrail that goes along a side of that.
Yeah, those aren't shown on the rendering now, but they.
Right,
But they will be there.
I'll speak loudly. I just noticed that you mentioned with another slide where you had both ramps angled upward.
In the front.
Blue arrows.
Yes.
Yeah.
Built right there, yeah. And then again, from my perspective, I'd like to see something I can hold on to when I'm going up that ramp. It's angled, correct?
Well, yeah, but very gradual. I mean,
Oh,
you're basically in about 40 feet, you're going up a foot or so. It's really gradual. It wouldn't be much different than the sidewalk out to the street.
Oh, over there.
Sorry.
Hi there. I didn't notice. Will there be the roof, the 1992 roof replaced with this project? I didn't notice that on the plan.
The roof on the 92 building was replaced not long ago, if I understand correctly.
Correct. There's no need for roof replacement. It's been done already.
I was thinking about what Jean said about the DPW having to clear the stairs every time there's snow. And in the new design, we still have the stairs. Was there any consideration for actually covering that set of stairs, just extending down? Or I know that changes the line, it changes the look altogether, but I didn't know if there was any discussion of that, because that would help a little bit.
We did not look at putting a canopy over the stairs or the ramp. We certainly could. The ramp right now has a snow melt system built into it, and the plan is that with the new ramp, we would continue that, and we would also do it at the stairs. So the snow and the ice would melt off of the stairs, and you wouldn't have an issue. You wouldn't have to put a bunch of sand and salt on it the way you're doing now.
Thank you. Would the small meeting rooms on the second floor have access to a built-in whiteboard or audiovisual when we have meetings up there for Zoom participants on town committees to come in? Would those be available?
Typically, in a room like that, we'd call them a quiet study room or a small meeting room, and each one of them would have a television outlet on the wall, recessed so that you have data and power. And the question is, it's really a policy decision. Do you want to hang a screen on the wall? Typically, folks do. Do you want to have it connected to the? We're showing the tables in these smaller rooms, for example, up against the wall, so that you could just plug right in. But we could have an outlet in the floor, and the table could be what they call wet, so that you could plug directly into the table. But again, that's a furnishings thing. Costs a little bit more to buy a table like that. Putting it against the wall is a little bit more cost effective. But there's a variety of different things you could do. But you certainly, and we saw the Apple TV worked out pretty good for a while here. And you could certainly connect to it wirelessly.
You mentioned furnishing. Would tables and chairs and new furniture be part of this upgrade that you're talking about, or is that a totally different piece of information?
That's a good question. I don't know that we thought about doing new furnishings as part. So I think we're assuming that we're going to move your existing shelving and relocate your existing books, your study carrels and so forth. But there are new tables that are going to be required in here. When we put together a budget for this thing, what we'll do is we'll send this out to a cost estimator, and then they'll give us an estimate of the construction cost. On top of that construction cost, we'll work together with you all to try to come up with a project cost. And so all of the so-called soft costs, they're hard when you're paying for them, but all the other things are going to be in there as well, so that you'll know basically what you're going to need to. And we'll put allowances in there for the flat screen TVs that go on the wall. We'll put an allowance in there for the furnishings, and we'll try to get that on there so when folks go and then raise their hand and say, yes, I really want this to happen because I love the library, they'll know what they're paying for. It'll all be in there.
Will there be a loudspeaker system?
You're going to have to be more specific. The question is about a loudspeaker system. You mean in the entire building, like a PA system?
Yeah.
That is not something we've considered. We don't do a lot of libraries that have that. But we can certainly look into it. Occasionally you'll be in a library and they'll say, the library's closing in half an hour or something like that. Typically we'll see that in larger buildings. It isn't something that we've talked to G about, but we can certainly look into that. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Could you go back to, you mind going back to the slide that you had the timeline?
Yep.
And I don't know if you're able to know this or share this at this point, but I wanted to. Oh, there it is. So at what, in rough estimate, when you have the, let's see, receive the cost estimate, okay, so the next step after this, where you have the rough cost estimate, around timeline, when do you, are you able to share, like, does anyone know that, or at this point?
I'm going to look at Christina right now and say, have we made a plan for when we're going to send this out for a cost estimate? I think it's probably coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now that cost estimators are running 3 or 4 weeks out. So once they have it in their hands, it'll take them about a month in order to get it. And then they'll send us a draft. And because we're so early in the process, the plans that we've shown you and the renderings are what we're going to send to them. There's not a lot of detail there. So they'll have to make allowances for things. They'll send it to us, and then we'll have to go through it and decide whether or not the allowances and the assumptions that they've made make sense. So there'll be a little bit back and forth, and they'll have to revise it. So it's probably like a 6-week process to get that thing in our hands in a final form, and then we can put the project budget numbers together with that.
Because funding considerations, grants, et cetera, helpful, to have.
Knowing what the number is.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And we've had folks that reach out and they'll say, oh, there's funding available for XYZ. Could you break that out of the cost estimate so that we could use that in our grant application? And we're happy to do stuff like that once we have the numbers in our hands.
So it might be like around 2 months from now, or
Does that make sense?
January, February. Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe by April 1st, we might have a
I
rough.
think we're trying to get everything in.
We have the reports from the engineers. They're making a few adjustments based on our feedback. We were doing this meeting today. We will have a few things we'll revisit with Jean to see how we want to include them, and then finalize our report, and then that package goes to the cost estimator.
Based on your experience with libraries, do you have an estimate about from when the contract's awarded to the finishing, how long this project would take?
That's a great question. Okay, so say you go to town meeting and this gets approved, and then somebody says, Johnson Roberts is perfect for this, which we'll assume that as well. So once the funding was in place and then somebody contacted us, and assuming we're just going to go right ahead and that you don't have to go back and do another public procurement process, which may take a number of months, it would probably take about a month or something to get the contracts going for us and get us up and running. Schematic design would be the first thing that happens that I mentioned, and then after that, design development, and then construction documents. And I would say in a project like this, if you did the whole thing as one project, let's say, schematic design is going to take something like 3 months, design development is going to take another 3 months, and then the construction documents will probably take 4 months. And in the end of the construction documents, we'll need to do, when we get to about 3/4 of the way through, we'll be doing additional cost estimating all the way through there to make sure we're on. And when we get to about 75% working drawings, we'll start to do all our local permitting. So we'll need to go get everybody to approve it. A historic district commission's going to have to say okay and all the things that we're doing. Get those all things lined up, come into the finish line, and then send out to bid. Public bidding, 6 to 8 weeks is what public bidding takes.
And then, but once you have a bidder and construction
And then
starts,
construction.
how long?
And again, if you were doing the whole thing, 8 months, 10 months,
Yeah, probably.
till substantial completion. And then after substantial completion, there's punch lists before you get to, it's about another month. Sometimes it can drag, depending on the builder. But that's kind of what you're talking about in general terms. What we normally see in a public library is scale like this.
I have a question for Jean, I think. Do we know how much money the town is thinking of allotting for this?
No.
Then what is the process?
So we are looking at this as a partnership. We're expecting the town to, of course, fund some of this. The Board of Trustees wants to do their part and be a good partner with the town and do some fundraising privately. There's grants we want to apply for. So it's going to be a compilation of funding sources. If any of you have followed Amherst's library building situation, that it's the same thing, and I've been in communication with them. It's pulling funds from different sources so that we're not asking our town for all of it. Of course, you know, it will be probably more than we could privately raise funds for, but we're hoping to be good partners and do our share, you know, with the Board of Trustees and private fundraising.
Does anybody have a top level for it?
Well, we don't have numbers, and that would, you know, funding from town sources would have to go through town meeting, so, yeah. Diane.
Thank you. This is really helpful. Two questions. One, could you give us any wide range of possibilities based on your experience with other similar sized libraries, particularly maybe in New England? And secondly, is part of the services of your firm access to family foundations or historical foundations that would help us to fund it and work with the library to provide that information?
So first off, I think what you're asking me is, we haven't done cost estimating yet, and could I guess?
I'm asking based on other libraries.
Well, we've done lots and lots of libraries, but we haven't done a project just like this one. And so I don't, I know you're trying to pin me down, and I'm trying to wiggle from underneath that. And the reason is because folks ask this question a lot, and I know that you would love to know. I would love to be able to tell you, but invariably I will be wrong. And if you ask me to guess, and I gave you a range, and then, you know, God forbid, the estimate comes in and it's outside that range. I've been wrong in the past, and I've been doing this for 40 years, and so I'm not going to do it again. I would really advise you to wait. We're not that. We've been working on this for a number of months now. We never get to the cost estimating until we get to the end, and the end is coming. And we'll get that number to you. But I'm afraid that even if I give you a range, I'll probably be wrong. The second part of that is if you're applying for grants, is there ways that we can help you? We'll do whatever you need. Do we know of any sources? There's some sources that we've heard of secondhand, because typically our clients are applying for grants. And just as Jean mentioned, she knows of the librarian. Is that Sharon Sherry up in Amherst, the director up there? That's
Yes.
Yeah, so we designed Sharon's library when she was the director in Sunderland, so I know Sharon. That's going to be your best bet. Now, I'd say, for example, we did the South Hadley Public Library, and Joe Rodeo applied for a grant, got a bunch of trees that were donated, and they just had to pay to put them in the ground. That was great. We just deleted them from the contract, and they just showed up in the contract to put those trees in instead. They didn't mind. So there's lots of things that we can do to help facilitate those things, and we're happy to kind of beat the bushes a little bit if we see if we can find other sources for grants. There isn't a ton of them, but
I would just like to add, to clarify, the Board of Trustees is actively investigating all possible grant opportunities, and we've got a pretty good list, and I think that's our strategic planning committee is on the road. Okay.
Just a quick question. As Jean mentioned, the library is used as a cooling center and a warming center. As part of the HVAC, will there be an emergency generator installed, or is that something that would be separate?
I just mentioned that. I don't know if we have included that yet. It was one of those things that we will ask for. A generator system, can folks hear me? Actually, this doesn't help, right? But it does help for the recording. A generator is one of those things. Sean's left. I was just going to ask Sean what he thought. It's one of those things where it's an investment, and you really need to decide whether you want to do it. Because you could put a generator that will run your emergency lights, and then you won't need to do batteries, for example, because these are all on battery backup. So if the power goes out, your emergency lights still work. And that includes the lights that light up your way so that you don't, so that could be some of these lights are on emergency. Those could all be on your emergency generator. But you could also add other things like heat to make sure that your building doesn't freeze in the wintertime. Or you could do your entire building. And so you're looking at a generator that could range in price, and now I'm going to guess. You could go from $20,000 for a small generator that would run just a portion of your things to something like $75,000, $80,000 for a generator that would run the entire building. If you wanted to run your air conditioning off of a generator, that's the one you're talking about. So you're looking at something that's probably as big as a bread truck. Everybody knows what a bread truck is, right? Say that to young people and they look at me like, what? So you're looking at a big generator, and then there's a maintenance cost that's associated with it. And then it's also going to exercise itself once a week for an hour. It's going to turn on and it's going to run. And you've got folks that live close by here, right? And that's going to be another consideration. It's one of those things you just need to be aware of. We're not opposed to it, but it's...
Well, there is one at the adult center, that's why, so you may not need one here.
If you have a place where you could go, yeah. If you needed cooling and the power was out, folks are probably better off going there. Yeah.
On to another topic. In your experiences with libraries, how many choose to do the project as a whole versus do it in increments? And could you speak a little bit about the disadvantages or advantages and disadvantages of each?
Sure. So everybody hear that question? The question was about phasing your project. And it's in our experience, when we've looked at doing studies like this, when we think about taking a project, a considerably larger project like this, and breaking up in smaller chunks versus doing it all at once, how often do folks do it as one project versus in multiple projects? I don't know that I have the numbers for you, but I can tell you that for the most part, when you start looking at the numbers, most folks choose to do, like it's 2/3, 3/4. We'll choose to do it all as one project. There are folks that just can't do that because they need to phase it for a variety of reasons. Phasing a project like this is, in order to get the scope accomplished, in order to get this thing done, taking out your ramp in your front porch here means that you can't get into your building. So if you want to maintain the building needs to be open, we really need to do the one in the front first. And then you could use that as a temporary entrance, right? And then once that's open and you can get in and out of there, then you need to schedule it to make sure that you're doing it probably in the summertime, because taking care of the front is going to be a little harder in the weather. It's not impossible, but the doors out there, because they're historic, we're not going to be able to mess with those too much, I wouldn't think. We're not going to be able to put in a big 6-foot wide door that pops open. You'll end up with those little skinny doors on an operator. So it gets complicated when you begin to break it up. If you turn each one of those things into a separate little project, they'll all need to be bid separately. Have to do a set of documents for each of those. You have to hire a contractor for each one of them. They're all going to come in, they'll bring a trailer, they'll pop it down, they'll close things off. You'll have to close down portions of what you're doing. They'll do all their work. It'll take them 6 months, and then they'll disappear. And then they'll come back and they'll do another one. They'll have to bid another project. They'll come back and do this thing over here. That'll take another 6 months. All right, well, now you're 12 months of construction. We thought we were going to be able to do the whole thing in maybe 10. Because if they're here already, the machines are here, they can do all the things that need to be done at the same time. They can do all their digging at once, right, if you're not in the building. They can do all of their electrical work at once. They can do all their mechanical work at once. If we're going to try to do a portion of the building while you stay in here, you're going to have to move out of that portion of the building. In the lobby area, you're going to have to move out of the lobby. You're going to have to put a temporary circulation desk up there, right? And then everybody's going to have to check in and check out over there. We're going to need temporary wiring. And then they're going to do this work, and they're going to put the new ductwork in, and then they're going to stub it out into the parts of the building they're not doing. And then you move out again. So folks think it's going to be easy to stay in the building. You don't have to move out. But you are going to have to move. You're going to have to pack, and you're going to have to move. But if you stay in the building, you're going to have to do it over and over and over again. You may have to move 4 times instead of just moving once. So the other thing it does is it stretches things out. And the general conditions in a contract, even if it's one contract, if you try to stay in the building, it gets longer. And then the superintendent gets paid. You have to pay for a trailer. All those things, the home office cost for the contractor is every time you stretch it out, it just turns into more money. But if you can break it up into chunks and do one now, and then 2 years later do another one, and then 2 years later do another one, you can do that, but then when we do the cost estimating, we'll say phase 2 is projected for 2029, and then we'll add 5% per year. That's a lot of money when you're talking about a couple $1 million. You just put 5 or 10% on there, and then you just keep amortizing it, and it can become expensive. So when we've talked to folks about that, we typically will find that even the folks that want to do one project and think about staying in the building, because of the length of time that it adds to it, they find that that length of time, the increase in the cost is more expensive than paying rent, moving out. So I would say most folks decide to do it in one shot, but that's not everyone.
This is probably more for Jean. What is the current use of the cottage? And what are the proposed uses of the cottage?
If you didn't hear, Nancy asked what's the current use of the cottage and the proposed future use. The cottage, if you don't know, is the building behind the library. It is rented out currently as a private residence. The Board of Trustees owns that building as part of the property here. This project is not addressing any changes to the cottage.
Oh dear. How long ago the East Long Meadow Library was completed?
Oh, I was young. East Longmeadow, it's got to be 20 years ago, I think.
20?
Do you know the answer to that?
I'm the director from the East Long.
Terrific.
Hi, everybody. So it opened in the spring of 2004.
Okay.
So it's a little over 21, 22 years. Yeah.
All right.
And Phil worked on it.
Katie, the director of East Long Meadow Public Library.
Thanks for having that information. I guess it wasn't too far off.
What's that?
Do you know the rough square footage of it?
19,000 square feet, give or take. It's big.
Compared to this?
No, I don't. I think it's just set up a little bit differently, but they're both fairly large buildings. I just think it's the way in which they were set up. But what's the square footage here?
because I looked at it.
You think I
cannot recall it off the top of my head.
17-ish.
I think this
There's no
floor is
basement
12.
in
I think
East Long
upstairs is
Meadow.
9 and
There's no
downstairs is
basement
about
in East Long
5.
Meadow. It's just the
or
main
6.
level and then the second story.
Do you remember what the cost was?
I was also not working.
And the cost, the 2004 cost wouldn't be relevant to anything now. Any other questions or comments or?
I know you don't want to estimate and be inaccurate, but as far as the group of residents, I think most people would want this to happen. And if we have to come up with a number, do we bump out in front of other capital projects that the town might already have a budget for? I mean, can we skip over some other things that the town wanted to do and sort of expedite getting this on the floor of the town meeting?
I would like to do that, yes, no, but that question about with priority of projects with the town, that would be a discussion with our town manager, our select board. Sean from DPW was here, but he had to leave. So that's a full discussion. They're ready to come to the table and have that discussion. We all care about the library, and they do too, and want to make this happen, but it's figuring all that out.
I spoke with one of the town select board, and if you know the budget in Long Meadow, there's a deficit right now. They don't have much money to give out. and they're advocating that we find a source of money other than the town, because they have a lot of money to spend on town streets to repair. There's a lot of bumps and so forth in the town, and they don't want to increase our taxes either. So it looks like the Storrs Library has to look for some other sources, be it people that attend the library, rich people in town, or whatever else. But the town really doesn't have the money right now to donate.
Anything else? Yeah.
I have a question. Thank you. Are there any proposed changes to the children's department?
Yes, but they're minor. Basically, as part of the redesign of the toilets, because one of the toilets serves the children's department. We'll have a new toilet in the children's department. Right now, it's kind of tucked around the corner here. And then we're also talking about revising the entrance into children's a little bit. So it's really cosmetic in these areas, and then we'll have to do some patching and so forth in that area. The majority of that space pretty much remains untouched.
Part of the reason I also ask is this entryway between the program room, between the Betty Ann Lum meeting room and the children's department, I guess some of that's going to be alleviated because the bathroom, those two doors are right next to each other. Currently.
Yeah.
But there's also that column that's right there as well, and that column presents difficulty getting in and out of those three-headed areas. I didn't know if that column was going to be addressed.
The column's still there, but now, whoops. As you can see, there's a recess now to get to that door, and instead of the wall sitting here, the wall now sits here, flush.
So the door's going to be here.
And so you get more space away from, that's the column
So when you
drawn
swing it
there.
out, you're going to have more room when you're out in the children's department.
That's a great improvement.
It is, Kitty. We looked at this a lot, and there would be a little space gained in the lobby area with the change of the lobby. I want to say we did look at other options for the children's department. We looked at moving it upstairs and giving them their own programming space that's not shared, and it just, in all the options, it didn't gain anything for them. So we thought, ease of use, it's just better to keep them here on the first floor, and it will be slight improvements.
I do think that those slight improvements, having worked here for 5 years, will actually be massive for the patrons. Like having that just accessibility piece, getting in and out of the space, and then the bathroom being shifted, I think will make a big difference for patrons.
Great.
In closing, I think we all need to go soon, but what can the average resident do to support this or to publicize our support besides like writing a letter to the editor? We don't have a local paper anymore. We have the Reminder, we have the Springfield paper, but what can the average person do to sort of get some excitement behind this project?
We're normally involved in outreach in a more limited way, things like this, but I would certainly tell folks that once the report is done, we normally recommend that you post that on your website so that folks can see it. This is being recorded, and I would certainly recommend folks listen into this so they can get some information firsthand, because I know lots of times information, we talk to lots of people that are kind of pro-project, and they're hearing things out in the community, and they don't know how those stories got started, right? But so directing people towards places where they can get the real information rather than stories that they may have heard can be important. I don't know if you have another suggestion about what you could do. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before.
Okay.
I think there's always also just telling your friends, your neighbors, getting the word out is also very valuable to a project.
Right. Sharing it out everywhere, to everyone we can think of. And we are making a new tab on our website devoted to this project. So we can, advise our friends and neighbors and family to look at that, send the link to people. And yeah, there's going to be more to come on this. We're just at that infancy stage.
Just a quick comment to Betsy's point. Maybe since there's this nice relationship with the Adult Center, maybe a presentation like this at the Adult Center would reach more people. And so another idea.
Yeah, everywhere we can go and be heard.
Right.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for so much participation. It's really fantastic.
Thank you so much.